Welcome back to another edition of the Talking National League podcast. Episode 33 is, and of course, it's on a Monday as we look ahead to Tuesday's fixtures in the National League. I do believe it is game week 33. I'm pleased to be joined by Paul Franklin once again. Just can't seem to get enough, can you, Paul, of the podcast? But Paul, once again, it's great to have you on to give your insight into tomorrow's games.
No, pleasure to be here.
Brilliant. And a good result for Wealdstone, of course, on Saturday against York. I believe you weren't there. You've been on holiday, haven't you, recently?
Yeah, I've been away skiing. I got back at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So ready for Chesterfield tomorrow night. So no, I missed the York game, but apparently the Stones are fairly impressive, but York were a little toothless. So a bit of both really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's just the thing, isn't it, about Wealdstone at the moment? 3 places outside of the playoffs, and that's in 10th place, I think, at the moment. As that question, we were speaking to Trevor about it recently, about them breaking into the playoffs, so they have the quality to break into those playoff spots. And it's looking likely at the moment, like you could compete with those sides in and around the playoffs. You're certainly in the mix, aren't you?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, like I said before, when I was on before, the Saturday, Tuesday schedule, could that be a bit of a hindrance to the part-time squad we have and it being fairly small? But the managers brought in Brooklyn Alunga and Corey Andrews and a chap called Terrell Whitaker from Swansea in the last few weeks. So there's now real competition for places. There's lads who aren't actually in the side who probably could be at the beginning, like the likes of Lewis Kinsella. Max Kretschmar didn't play Saturday because he was suspended after his red card at Wrexham. So, we've got options and we've got a bit of depth, and it's really just how the management can rotate that and get through this next few weeks where we are playing Saturday, Tuesday, which, when you're a full-time squad, you can manage that a bit better and recovery and everything else that comes with it.
Yes, certainly. We've got a fair few people that are tuning into the stream. Hopefully those numbers do increase as we get on, but a good start tonight to the stream. If you are new to the podcast, please remember to like and subscribe. Also, like I've mentioned, please like and subscribe. Also, if you are new and if you're obviously watching this on a regular basis, please remember to leave your predictions and opinions in the live chat. They're needed for a podcast like this to keep it going. And, it's something to read, isn't it? It's great to hear your predictions. We don't want it to be all about us. We want to hear from yourselves as well. A new addition to the podcast too. A new thing we've added. We are now doing a mini prediction league to make it a little bit more entertaining. Me and Trevor did it on Thursday evening, and I got 8 points from the game week predictions, and he got 9, so he beat me by 1. Paul, do you reckon you'll be able to beat Trevor today?
I hope so. He's a Barnet fan. We've got to get one up over him. So who knows?
You need to beat him, of course. It's going from one part of North London to the other.
That's right. Yeah. Though it's like we said just before we came on live, it's a real difficult set of fixtures again, isn't it? Anyone could beat anyone at this stage of the season.
Yeah, like we've been mentioning, it's so hard to predict all the upcoming games. I've found it extremely difficult being in my notes today, thinking Altrincham versus Barnet, Halifax versus Solihull. How am I supposed to predict this game? And of course, it's really hard to justify as well my prediction. A lot's on gut feeling, but hopefully I do a little better than last week and hopefully beat you, Paul, because that would be embarrassing, losing on my own podcast for a second week in a row. Just when anyone is wanting to get involved and maybe do it yourselves and come against us, it's 3 points for getting the exact score correct. So to make that make sense, like predicting Halifax to beat Solihull 3-0. I'm not saying we will do in a million years, but if you got that quick, you get 3 points. If you just said Halifax to win, and you said, let's say 1-0 and Halifax won 3-0, then you just get the 1 point. So if you do want to give your thoughts on that, we've got people that are coming in now. Ian Birchnell, who is, of course, a Notts County supporter, always in the streams. Evening, Luke. Evening, Ian. We've also had Dale, who's recently joined us. Evening, all. And then we've also had Ali, who's a Woking supporter. Hello, non-league fans. Welcome to the stream as well. Ali, yeah, you'll be wanting for a little bit more of a positive result after, of course, Saturday's game against Altrincham in the league, losing to them. That was a massive surprise, one of the biggest surprises, I think, in the division, wouldn't you say, Paul?
Oh, that shadow of doubt. And, Altrincham one of those teams, haven't they? They were started off really poorly, kept faith of the manager, got through that full-time process, sort of bedded in, had a real upturn in form and just dipped lately. But clearly, with the squad that Parkinson's got there, okay, they've lost Clough, but they've really brought, they've strengthened again in areas where they were needed to. They're definitely a playoff contender or thereabouts, and can ruffle a few feathers at the top end of the table without doubt.
Yeah, they were a bit of a surprise package, and there's a lot of those this season. A slight bit inconsistent, but I have to say Phil Parkinson is in my opinion, one of the stronger managers in the division at the moment. I think he's done a remarkable job in recent years at Altrincham, and everything behind the scenes seems to be going very well there too. We've also had Chris Gosling, who's a Notts County fan, who joined the stream. Happy Monday all. Just over 30 people in the stream at the moment. So please remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into all the games then. So I'll allow you to start with a game that you'd like to go with if it does turn up here. Their last week's. So we start with your club then, Chesterfield versus Wealdstone, because this is an interesting game. Let me just ask you quickly, what's your thoughts on the Stones recently?
A real positives. Went to Wrexham, gave them a really good game. Refereeing decisions, etc. Could maybe gone against us, but put up a real good, strong performance against them. It easily beat York on Saturday, from what I understand, and were impressive in terms of getting 3 goals, which has always been something we struggle with, is scoring more than 1, maybe 2 in a game. There's a real positivity about the squad, and as I said, with the ability to bring those 3 lads in the window, 1 permanently through Corey Andrews from Torquay and the 2 lads on loan, has really given us options. But they've also given us options of where we've sort of started to fail. We're very good with the ball. We're very possession based. Anyone who's watched the Stones play, they're very easy on the eye, but they don't have that killer instinct. Corey Andrews, I think he's looking like he could be that person that helps. Is that focal point up top. We've got to get him fitter, stronger, match fit. But with Terrell, Whittaker from Swansea and Brooklyn Alunga from MK Dons, they're a real threat on the wide and the wide positions, giving those assists. And I think hopefully now that will sort of spur the likes of Taran Alaraki on, who's had a really good season, but a little bit inconsistent in front of goal. It's that final piece. We were that one centre forward from being probably in the playoffs, and we've maybe found that. So who knows? We start tomorrow night at Chesterfield. I've gone with 3-1 to Wealdstone purely on.
Ooh. Would you say a bit of bias there?
Sorry?
Would you say a bit of bias there? As a neutral, would you be backing Wealdstone in this game? Because this is one that when I were looking at, I were surprisingly, I wouldn't even say it's a big surprise now looking at more of a Wealdstone win the way Chesterfield.
No, I'm purely going on. Their form has just dropped off the end of a cliff, hasn't it? And Paul Cook's days numbered. There's suggestions that amongst their support base that is he to be kept? Should he be kept? The advantage they got is they're at home. We've got to travel up there on a Tuesday night with our squad. So that's the advantage there. But we've held Wrexham to a good game. I know we've lost. We've beaten a strong York side, although they're in a little bit of turmoil. I think I'm just going. So a 3-1 win, maybe more with the heart than the head in this one, but I can see us getting a win.
Yeah, and like I've mentioned, I think it's a bit of a banana skin for Chesterfield, because I think you'd still say the favourites because of the difference between the 2 sides, the financial difference between the 2 sides. Too, like you mentioned, you're missing that killer instinct in front of goal, and I think losing Reece Brown, that just showed you the nature of where you are as a club. Not trying to be rude or anything, but
no.
If a bigger club comes calling, Wealdstone are going to be unable to keep hold of these quality players in certain scenarios, and I think that's been the case. But I do look at this, and I wouldn't be surprised if Wealdstone got something in this game. Just to put this into perspective, too, Chesterfield haven't won a game in their past 5 fixtures. Wealdstone have had 7 points in their last 5 too. So Wealdstone on very decent form at the moment. Will be looking to break into those playoff spots. But I'm going to back Chesterfield in this game. I just generally feel that there's got to be a time where they bounce back, and this is a game where they need to, I think, being at home Tuesday night, it's that hope that I think they're going to bounce back, because you don't want to be falling down the same path as last season, where they went on a poor run at this time last year, and ever since almost fell out of the playoffs at the end of the season. Very, very lucky to survive in the playoffs. And that, I think the reason they did was because of the good start to the season. And it seems to be a similar sort of scenario this time. But I honestly feel Tuesday night at home against Wealdstone, I'd be backing them, like you mentioned. Wealdstone being a part-time club, it's a long way to go on a Tuesday night, especially with being a part-time club. It's interesting because I was watching the Bunch of Amateur series on Dorking. They travelled up to Halifax on Tuesday night, and they were talking about the players and how they, of course, have to book time off work, and how it can be quite a big inconvenience for them. That could be something as well with Wealdstone being an inconvenience. I think going to somewhere like Chesterfield, it'd be a tough game, but I'm going to be back in Chesterfield, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 Chesterfield win. I think the quality will show in the end, with the difference between the two sides. Just looking at predictions then, let's see if anyone's come in. We've had a Maidstone fan who's coming. Chesterfield doing poor, but then again, they have to win at some point. Yeah, that's exactly what I've been saying. I think there's got to be a time where they do, of course, win. Haven't won a game in 5. Tom, who's a Solihull Moors fan, I believe if they lose this, then Cook has to go. Yeah, and it's interesting because of that, because I think a lot of Chesterfield fans are still in favour of Cook because of past glory back when they were in the Football League. And is it getting to the point now where maybe it's not working at Chesterfield anymore for Paul Cook? Maybe his time is up and someone new needs to come in. Obviously, it was working well with Danny Rowe, but due to circumstances that we don't need to talk about, it sort of was the reason that the season collapsed last season. And I think if you are going to live on past glory, it isn't always a good thing to have him, in my opinion. You know, having someone like Paul Cook sort of loses the legacy. So I think, yeah, it's a question that you can be talking about. But for me, I'd still be in favour with him. I think he's a good manager, but I think it's all about opinions on this topic. 40 plus people in the stream right now. If you do want to give us your thoughts, if you are new, please remember to like and subscribe, and also comment down below your predictions. Ian's coming and said 2-1 to Chesterfield. Yeah, similar prediction with me and Ian there. Next game then, do you want to pick a game out of the games that are on offer?
Should we go with your team?
Yeah, let's go Halifax versus
Solihull.
It's a hard one to talk about with Halifax at the moment. I don't really know what to think of that Boreham Wood result. It was a good point looking at as a result perspective, but as a performance, I think I'd look at it from a different perspective too. Yeah, what would your take be, just as someone who isn't, of course, looking in from just a National League supporter? What would your take be in Halifax at the moment, down in 15th?
I mean, both teams, Halifax and Solihull, just showing a massive amount of inconsistency, aren't they? For the sort of for the status they have in the league and how well they've done in previous decades, but of previous seasons, especially with Solihull, to not and have a really good manager in Neil Ardley there, and you know, I think they're both teams are underachieving. As I've said previously, I saw Halifax early on down at Grosvenor Vale, and they were really poor, and I felt for them. I know you had a new manager and a transition. I've gone with a 1-1 draw. I can't see many goals being scored. I don't know how you feel, Luke, you know, having watched Halifax every week, but I just don't see many goals being scored. And it's going to be a tight one.
I think for anyone that watched the game on BT Sport between Bournemouth and Halifax, I said prior to the game that it wouldn't be a pretty watch, and it certainly wasn't from either side, in my opinion, on BT Sport. And like you mentioned, yeah, I can't see many goals at all between the two sides. Halifax, surprisingly, are still, I think, okay defensively. We're making some real significant errors, but I think overall, defensively, we are still quite a strong side with the calibre of players. But yet on the forward front, we simply haven't been good enough for a long time, and I think that's down to the injuries that we've had, the key injuries that we've had. But yeah, look at this game as being at home. A home record speaks for itself. Not too bad. Well, it's gone a little downhill recently, 13th in the league, but comparing that with the away record for Halifax all the way down if I can find it here, all the way down in 16th, and I think that's sort of, I think that shows us on a positive note, to be honest. Flatters us, I think it's the term that you probably use for that one. 3 wins away from home, 4 draws, and 10 losses. But looking at Solihull's away form, very, very good away from home, 7th in the league, which isn't really a true reflection of their current position at all. Halifax quite good at home, don't particularly concede too many goals at home. So I'll be going for a 0-0 draw. Dallas, Sabara, Kelly haven't particularly turned up recently. Neither has Diasaruwe. And like I've mentioned, the goals that we have scored in recent weeks have come from nothing. And it's not been a case of us creating a lot of chances. It's been a case of counting on other teams' mistakes, set pieces. Obviously, Millie Ali's goal was just a wonder goal that he simply made himself out of nothing. So, I can't see many goals between the two sides at all. So, I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw, in my opinion. If you do want to get your predictions in on this game, please feel free to. I know we've got 1 or 2 Solihull fans that are, of course, tuning in too. So, Ian's come in and he said 1-1. And then Tom, who's a Solihull fan's come in and said, and we actually play a majority of their games on the upper foot, so clearly something going wrong, and it's down to Ardley. He has to take responsibility for it. It's quite a good conversation this between the number of managers in the division. You know, Neil Ardley, highly rated in this division. Paul Cook, highly rated in this division. What's your take on these managers at the moment? They're getting quite a lot of stick, where overall the legacy is quite high.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, you look at Darryl McMahon at Dagenham, Gary Johnson at Yeovil, all got pedigree at this level and above. I think the problem you find is they are under so much pressure, aren't they? I mean, everyone wants out of this league. You know, there's no teams apart from maybe the Dorkings and Wealdstones. There's no teams really that want to be in this league. They want to be in the Football League, and they can't. You know, this is a real bum fight to get out. You know, one promotion place there with 1 playoff place. You know, 2 out of all of those teams, and someone's going to end up missing out, right? So, you know, the likes of McMahon and RD, they're all under so much pressure, not just from their fan base, but, you know, probably from their directors and, you know, from the clubs that they manage. So it's a real difficult one. And ultimately they're all scrambling for the same sort of players. You know, the level that we're at, we're scrambling for the same sort of players. They're trying to find that gem out of the loan market, or someone who's on the free agency market, because, you know, it's not gone right in one club or another. So I personally wouldn't want to be a manager at this level. Really, really difficult. So you can see why we've got such good pedigree in management in the league, but you can see why they're under so much pressure, and why there is, you know, the talk of some of them having their days numbered.
Yeah, there's more managers in this division, in my opinion, that are good managers than bad managers. To be honest, there's fully 3/4 of the league have high caliber quality managers. I'd probably include Millington in that bracket, although I've been quite critical of him recently. I think he's been very unfortunate and been a bit of a scapegoat, to be honest, with the Halifax fan base, just due to the amount of injuries that we've had and how unfortunate we have been in certain games this season. But I do look at Halifax as well, and in 15th place, we feel as a fan base we're demanding that we should be at least in the top 7, and realistically, we're nowhere near. We nowhere near deserve it. You know, every club, every season, you're going to have 4 or 5 clubs that feel they're underperforming and aren't in a position that suits them at all. You know, you look at Aldershot, even a former Football League side, they'll be wanting to get back in the Football League, but they're miles off it at the moment. Altrincham inspiring for better things to get in the Football League for the first time in their long historical history. Solihull, even Dagenham, big budget there. That's something that does get a little unheard of, is that Dagenham do have quite a lot of money. We've seen with them snatching in the effing young off Aldershot recently. They're significantly underperforming too. And then even in the playoffs, Chesterfield, Southend, Barnet, Woking, Bromley to a certain extent, all feel they want to be in the Football League, but it's so difficult and so relentless in this division to get out of this division at this moment in time. And that's another thing that I'd put towards adding that extra promotion spot. But I think that's a question for another time. Next game then that we'll have a look at. This is a game that interests me, and I'll say this before we do go into previewing it in greater depth, screams goals. Dagenham versus Aldershot. The Daggers versus the Shots. Let's start off with Aldershot then recently. Slightly inconsistent, but seem to just be nicely just ploughing along in this division.
Yeah, I mean, it's, they didn't start off very well. Mark Molesley, they got a very young squad. He went into the market he knew, working in the academy system, at Bournemouth, and we tried to pick up a few tried and trusted lads from the bottom end of the National League, and it didn't really work for him, did it? So get him. Is it Ross McNeely still in there as a, that bit of continuity has helped. And they have really stabilised. I know they've lost Iniefe Young, but he seemed to be a good bit of business for the football club as well as for him in personally. When you listen to Terry Brown's press conference around the reasons why he went, but they're definitely one of these teams that are going to sort of stay in the league now. I can't see them getting relegated. They're not going to start challenging for playoffs, but you're quite right. They're one of those sides that should be probably there or thereabouts. In the top half of the table. As for Dagenham. Yeah, Daryl McMahon is under an awful lot of pressure, right? Big budget, American investors. They're just hugely inconsistent. It'd be interesting to see how they get on now. They've got Iniefe Young and a few others sort of lads that they've brought in, because they've got an awful lot of firepower up top, haven't they, with Dagenham? But they just don't seem to be getting it together whatsoever.
No, they certainly don't. Moraes, a high caliber player at this division, he did very well at Boreham Wood. Iniefe Young, he's been prolific at a number of clubs. Dover, when Dover were in this division, Aldershot he did well at. Woking had a decent spell there too. He's a high caliber striker. Paul McCallum, I think that was great business from Dagenham to loan him out. Maybe a lot of people are talking about they should have sold him, but to get him out off the wage bill and then bring in someone like Iniefe Young, who's on form at the moment, I thought that was some great business from Dagenham, in my opinion. Obviously, snatching him off Aldershot, and that's going to be interesting to see him play against the Shots. It'll be interesting to see how Aldershot fans react to him leaving the club, because a lot of them have been quite complimentary towards him, although he has left them for a rival club in mid-season. But yeah. It's a hard game to call. Aldershot scoring an awful lot of goals at the moment. You look at that Wrexham game, it shows a lot. You can take a lot of positives from that. And that fourth goal was just one hell of a goal, to be honest. It wasn't the fourth goal. It was the one where Paul Mullin did that back heel, and you can't really stop that. You can't even expect that. And I think it's another thing with Aldershot, similar to Halifax. They need to get rid of these significant errors that they keep making in games, even against Wrexham. There was one quality goal, and a lot of them were just silly mistakes. The silly penalty to give away, and yeah, that's all I can really say on Aldershot, because they do have an awfully good squad, in my opinion. A really good squad there. Tyler Cordner, a good player. Amaluza, Ryan Glover, another really good player, in my opinion. There's a lot of quality players there. Tony Willard as well, a player that I rate quite highly at Aldershot this season. No, it's a squad full of quality, but they're another side. They're just simply not consistent enough. In a decent placement at the minute in 13th, the highest that they've been this season. But if you're wanting to push on, you need to be more consistent, and going to places like Dagenham, who are out of form at the moment, you need to be picking up a result there. As for the Daggers, they're another side really inconsistent. But you're not telling me in a million years that squad doesn't have the quality there to be in the playoffs, because it certainly does. And I think if I was to blame anyone at the moment, I'd be blaming that manager, Dal McMahon. I just don't think he's quite right for Dagenham at the moment. A lot of Daggers fans quite mixed between the fan base, but you look at the games that they've lost this season, you look at Scunthorpe away from home, losing that. I honestly feel it's time for him to go and for Dagenham to bring in a quality manager and work with these players, because these players are underperforming and someone needs to be held accountable for that. What's your prediction then, Paul?
Well, you bigged it up. We're going to be plenty of goals, and I've gone with a 1-1 draw. So what do I know? I think I don't think one team or the other will win. It depends how much Saturday took out of Aldershot in terms of the effort and desire they put into the Wrexham game. You know, they may come out of that with an awful lot of positives. It's almost like a moral victory for them, even though they lost. So, I've gone for a 1-1 draw. 1-1 draw.
Yeah, the odds there favoured Dagenham, but they are the home side and won the reverse fixture 1-0, 2-0 in fact it was, if I remember rightly, away from home at Aldershot. I'm going to go for a 3-2 Dagenham win. I think being at home, it's similar to the Chesterfield scenario. I think they need to bounce back at some point, and they often do. And it's often games like this where you lose a lot of games against some sides that you'd be expecting to beat, and then you come up against an Aldershot side that in form at the moment, and they end up beating them. So yeah, I'd be backing Dagenham in this game. I think any effing young Marias, Balanta even. There's a lot of quality there going forward. So yeah, I'd be expecting Dagenham to get all 3 points in this game. Right, your turn then. What game would you like to go to next?
Dorking Torquay. Let's do that.
Oh, this is a big one. Now, honestly, I think this is game of the game
of the night.
If I wasn't watching Halifax, which at the moment isn't much of a privilege, to be honest, I'd be certainly paying the stream to watch this game. Dorking versus Torquay. Just to add to the statistics here, Dorking haven't won a game this year in 2023. Torquay have just defeated Barnet, and Barnet have been in a lot of form. Prior to that, of course, Barnet lost to Notts County, but then to go to Torquay and Torquay to defeat them, it shows a lot about Torquay fighting for their lives at the moment near the bottom of the table. Torquay in 22nd place, Dorking in 20th. And this just shows you just here, Torquay win, they'll go above Dorking. Dorking will fall into the relegation places. Dorking win, they'll stay outside of that zone at the moment. What would you have to say? Let's just quickly have a look at Torquay at the moment and their recent fixtures. What would you have to say on them?
Well, they've improved, right? You know, they were looking like they were dead and buried. They're getting out of a victory against Barnet down at Plainmoor is a massive one. I know Barnet was sort of on the run of 6 away games in a row, so it's hard yards for any team to sort of go on that, to sort of win as many games as they did on their sort of away fixtures. So, you know, it was always going to happen at some point. But a bit like last year, you know, Gary Johnson's almost settled his squad down. He's got the lad from Sutton come in, Tope, I can't remember his surname, Fadahunzi. You know, he looks like he could be a great addition for them. I think it's just taking Gary Johnson a bit of time. Another team that are in transition, almost made the Football League a couple of years ago. Must be really hard to recruit down there in the south compared to other teams within the National League. I think they're going to have too much to go down now, especially with the manager and the experience he has, and the fact they have stabilised with Jarvis up top, with Fadahunzi up top, and I think they have too much. It's a real 6-pointer, right?
Yeah. I don't want to go off topic here, so I'll ask you it after we've given our predictions and stuff. I was going to ask who would you be predicting to go down at the moment if Torquay were to survive. I will answer that question too. I won't leave you isolated on your own on that one. But just looking at the two sides, Torquay's last couple of games, 1-0 win against Maidstone. That was another 6-pointer at the time. Defeated them. Woking away from home, hot on form. That Woking result against them didn't seem to affect Woking at all. So it shows that Torquay must have just turned up on the night. Gave Notts County a good go, equalised against them. Unfortunately, Notts County went on to win from their perspective. And then to beat Barnet at home just says a lot. The only thing I will say is travelling away from home at Dorking on a Tuesday night, is it going to affect them? Long way. Dorking, we know Mark White, this is the game where he knows that he needs to get the best out of his players and they need to turn up on the night. What would your prediction be for this game?
I've gone with a 2-0 Torquay win. The problem with Dorking is that they're too cavalier. He's playing a brand of football that I saw when Wealdstone first came in with Dean Brennan in charge, where they're just too open. You can't afford to play like that in the National League. You've got to form a basis where you're not going to let many goals in, and then obviously try and attack whereas almost trying to play the Aussie Ardiles, we'll score more goals than you will, and especially when you haven't got the quality. No disrespect to Dorking, but they're new into the league. They're a part-time operation. they've done really well to get the 2 lads in from Crawley. Aaron Kuhl from Slough is a very, very good footballer in the midfield. I've seen him several times. Slough's a local team to me. Taking interest in them. He's a very, very good footballer. Those 3 additions are going to help, but I just can't see Dorking having enough tomorrow night, let alone in the rest of the season. And Torquay are going to take a real fillet from that Barnet win. Dorking not won again. We could turn around and say, well, Dorking have got to win at some point, but I can't see it tomorrow night. I've gone Torquay to win 2-0.
Oh, big call that, and that'd be a massive result for Torquay United. Just a second ago, we had over 50 people live in the stream. That's great to see, especially on a Monday evening too. If you are new to the stream, which I'm predicting that a lot of you are, please remember to like and subscribe, and please feel free, don't hesitate to get involved with the predictions and your opinions. Too, I know we've had quite a lot of people that have come in with their predictions. We'll read them out very, very soon. But just a bit on this game too. I can't split the 2 sides. I think this game, the reverse fixture, of course, at Torquay was a 3-3 draw. And I think it being at Dorking now on a plastic pitch, I can't split the sides again. I think it'll have a lot of goals in it. And I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw again. It seems to be a night of draws from my perspective, just boring draws. But yeah, I can't split the 2 sides to be totally honest, unfortunately. If anyone was hoping for me to give a prediction towards either of the sides, but Dorking being at home, I just can't split the sides, unfortunately. But I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. In my opinion, we'll have a look, see what people have had to say in the live chat just recently. I'll scroll up a bit so we know what people are talking about. Jim has come in and said 3-1 to Dorking. So he's gone for a Dorking win. Have we had any other? I predicted Kez has joined us tonight, so Oldham fan, and said I predicted Wrexham and Aldershot to be a draw as well, which was quite close, I suppose. The game of the night is Notts v Southend to inform teams. Yeah, that's a game that we need to come on to very, very soon as well. Liam, who's come in, who said, I'm not sure who you support, Liam, but would be sad to see Yeovil relegated. Yeah, another big club, in my opinion, down near the bottom, but a lot of big clubs there. In my opinion, I think they're going to be fine. The Maidstone fan said, mad to think all 4 promoted teams could be back down next season. Yeah, that's another topic as well. I think York will be fine. The other 3, it's a difficult one to call. Liam's come in and said, local team to me is Barnet, so I want them promoted. Liam, let us know who you do actually support. Is it Barnet? Tommy, who is a Torquay United fan, great to have a Torquay fan with us tonight. Not sure we'll keep a clean sheet, and our record on 4G pitches isn't the best. That said, we've shown a lot of spirit in recent weeks, and we are playing a lot better than a few months ago. Big game, come on, you yellows. It's yellows, isn't it? Hopefully, as a Torquay fan, you'll be wanting to get a result there. Kez is quickly coming in, and then we'll get back to the predictions. Totally agree, Liam. Looked awful on Saturday. However, played decent is football, but no end product. Yeah, and that seems to be a problem with a lot of teams, especially near the bottom of the table. No end product, and at this level, it is so hard to find a prolific goal scorer. Defend on the defensive side of things. It's a little easier to find a strong defence, but as Halifax are faring this season, Wealdstone even in and around the playoffs, it's so hard to find a prolific goal scorer. Liam did come in and actually say supports Arsenal, but support my local Barnet. Yeah, welcome to the stream, Liam. Let's go back to the predictions then. Would you like another choice of game that you'd like to have a look at, Paul?
Well, should we go not Southend?
Yeah, not Southend. Yeah. Now, I've just talked a long time, so do you want to give your view on this game?
Well, I've gone for a high scoring 3-2 win to Notts, but I think you could argue the point either side. But Notts County are the best team I've seen in the league this season. I know, speaking with Joe from Off the Line blog, after the weekend down at Yeovil, Langstaff was just the difference. I think when it boils down to it, like you just talked about, getting that striker, getting Langstaff from Gateshead, scoring 30-odd goals this season. I don't think he scores red, he scores a penalty. So, he's not like Paul Mullin where he's relying on penalties as well. Whereas, Southend, on the backdrop of everything that's going on down there, they're showing remarkable spirit, unbelievable spirit to still be in that playoff place. Have the players been paid? Have the staff been paid? And they're turning out impressive results considering what might happen. I know there's been a little bit of sort of unrest this week with Notts County suggesting they like Jack Bridge and Cav Miley being interested for other clubs, but Notts County at home midweek is going to be a big crowd. I can just see them winning, but it's going to be a high scoring game. I feel 3-2 to Notts.
I've gone for a bit of an opposite to what you said, a little bit of a different contrast. I think Notts County are going to scrape through this game. I'm going to go for a Notts win, a 1-0 win. I was hesitating with this to back Southend to get something at this game, but thing is, good sides this season, especially at the top, like Notts County. They proved it against Wrexham. They proved it against Barnet. They proved it against Chesterfield the other week. They grind out results against the good sides in this division, and I think they'll do that once against Southend. But I think Southend, they'll put up a fight. You have to give them a lot of credit, and we say this on a regular basis now. Not getting paid at the moment. They're basically volunteering to play for this club, and they're not actually in a poor position. They're putting the heart and soul into this football club. Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of Southend's current situation, but to be sixth in the league, going to Notts County with a lot of fans expecting them to somehow get something out of this game, I think says a lot and a true reflection about Kevin Marr and the players that he has on show. But what's not helping them at the moment, and it hasn't really affected the players, is the amount of rumours with players. Obviously, there's a lot of controversial talk on social media. Luke Williams had a lot of criticism from what he had to say on Bridge, who, of course, was rumoured to go to Notts County. Miley, another player, has been rumoured to Wrexham. Of course, you're going to have this at the moment in Southend's current state. We saw protests on Saturday when fans went around to their house. We don't need to talk too much about that, but yeah, this game, it's going to be a tough game. I don't think it'll be an easy night for Notts County, but I'd be expecting them to grind through. I think with the forwards they have on offer this season compared to what they've had previously, this is what good sides do. Last season, if it were Notts County, with Wootton up front and no Langstaff or Sedwin Scott, I'd probably go for a draw. But this sort of game, good sides like Notts County grind their way through, and this is a game where I think so. You just have to look at this record at home. 11 wins at home, 4 draws, haven't lost at home all season yet. They don't even have the best home record in the division, just says it all. But those 4 draws have been against sides like Boreham Wood, Bromley, Yeovil even, and the other one with Chesterfield. So you don't want to fall in that trap again against Southend United. But honestly, I'd be expecting Southend to go to Notts County with the intention to win the game, in fact, and go into that game trying to play on the front foot. But of course, I think Notts County's quality, once again, will show later on in the game. Next game we'll have a look at then. Let's have a look at York versus Boreham Wood. Obviously, I don't think you've probably seen the highlights of the Wealdstone versus York game. What's your been opinions on York recently?
It's a real difficult one, is it? They're clearly affected by the change in management with John Askey at the beginning of the campaign, the chairman, owner, who. Their assistant manager, coach, youth team coach, and not having a permanent manager is John Askey coming back. You going into that game on Saturday against Wealdstone, that new manager bounce, if they had been appointed, someone may have helped. How much are they playing for the club? These lads, it's a really difficult one. They're in real turmoil, and they're the sort of team that I think they'd be okay, but could get sucked into that relegation battle. I mean, I've gone. Boreham Wood don't score too many, but don't let many in, right? York haven't scored too many lately. I think even their goal on Saturday against Wealdstone was a little bit of a fortuitous one. Sam Howes made a very unusual error for their goal. So I've gone York 0, Boreham Wood 1. I think Boreham Wood will just be that bit more resolute. York look a bit toothless up top. It appears that he's probably not playing the right sort of formation or players. Looking at the York Twitter feed, I know it's at York, but there's going to be a lot of sort of negativity around the place. And I just think, Luke Garrard, he sets his teams up not to lose, right? And then if they can win the game, they'll go and win the game. And I can see that happening. A low scoring 1-0 to Boreham Wood.
Yeah, I'd expect something similar. I've gone for a 2-0 Boreham Wood win. Boreham Wood's away form just too hard. I think it's the 4th best in the division. Yeah, a lot better away from home than what they are at home. And it's because they can play that style of football where, they defend well organised, frustrate the opposition, and then catch them on the break later on in the game. That's something that Boreham Wood often do. And I think somewhere like York, Luke Garrard will be going into this game. This is certainly that sort of game. York, very toxic around the place. York fans will be expecting a lot from this side to get a result against Boreham Wood. So you'd expect York to keep a lot of the ball, but Boreham Wood to frustrate them. And that's where I think that quality will really show on that counter-attack. Marsh, Nerdavue, I think it is. I can't pronounce it. Most of you all know who I'm on about. Scored against Halifax on Saturday. Yeah, I think they've got a lot of firepower up top. Boreham Wood at the moment, obviously not prolific, but not many sides are. But they scrape out results away from home, and I think this is another prime example of a game where they will do. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Boreham Wood win, in my opinion. But hopefully York can swiftly employ a full-time manager, because I want to ask you just your take on that at the moment. Obviously, I think Maidstone without a full-time manager either at the moment, manager that's obviously on a permanent basis. But obviously York as well, another club. Is there anyone that... What would your take be on this situation? Of course, John Askey's been rumoured with the club at this moment in time. Multiple other players as well. Managers, I should say, as well, being rumoured.
Yeah, it's one of those where managers want jobs. You're better off in a job than not being in a job. You want to be in the circle. But is it a proposition that's enticing to anybody at this particular time? They've got an ownership group or individual that isn't liked by the fans. They seem to be doing the things they want to do. Their last appointment just didn't work. He seemed to be all mouth and no trousers. Didn't really produce it onto the football pitch. How much are the players playing for the club? How are they feeling about it? I would have thought, and I could be wrong, but I would have thought if John Askey was going to come back, he'd have been back by now. At least in before the game on Wealdstone on Saturday. So they still haven't appointed anyone. Are they finding it difficult to find the right candidate? And that's going to have a knock-on effect. And tomorrow night's not going to help. They're going to have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 fans there, and they're all going to show their displeasure at what's been happening. So it's not probably not a good place to be. They can turn the corner as quickly as they've turned the corner sort of downward with that downward spiral. They could turn the corner and work their way back up. They've certainly got the resource levels there, and they've got a little bit of the quality in their squads. 2 lads up top, Linnell, John Lewis, and the lad who played down here for Hayes, I can't remember his surname, Dooku. They've got, and they've just got Shaq Ford in from Watford. Yeah, they've got a certain amount of firepower. It's just whether they can get it together and put a decent performance on the pitch. Yeah,
exactly. I'd agree with that. Of course, Maidstone, another club in a similar situation with their manager. Of course, we've had a Maidstone fan, and he'll know Maidstone better than we will. He said Maidstone should keep Alakobe permanently, in my opinion. Got good contacts and would make Maidstone promotion contenders next season. Would you be looking at Maidstone at the moment? Of course, I think that Maidstone fans expecting Maidstone to go down now, and it's something that I've been saying for a while. Another club that I don't want to see go down, but like I mentioned, I simply don't think they've got the quality, and they'll soon fall away from the rest in the league. And I think Maidstone are that side this season where they're the worst side in the division from quite a long distance, in my opinion. I don't know what other people think of that at the moment. Of course, 4 points in it between them and Scunthorpe at the moment. First most games played in the division, but talks about them keeping their current manager, and then hopefully next season, when what's expected, they're back in the National League South, they can regroup and try to get promoted back into the National League again and make a better use out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the difference between York and Maidstone is York potentially have the quality in their squad to do better, but don't have the manager, whereas Maidstone have got the manager. I mean, Elokobi, although he isn't the full time, he seems to know what he's doing. He's got a vast experience at that level, but as a player and clearly higher, playing up into the Premier League, so he can probably attract players in the future, and he seems to be doing quite well with them as they stand. But I think if you had an Elokobi in at York, you could see York being a lot better than they are. I can't see Maidstone sticking around. They had a bit of a blow. They had some investment that was due to happen, didn't happen. So you could see them being a real powerhouse in the National League South if they were to get relegated and probably bounce straight back up. That may not happen as easily if they do get relegated. They just haven't got the quality across the pitch. They try, but just I could see them struggling to stay up, and I could see them struggling tomorrow night as well, even though they're at home.
Yeah, I think that's another game we do need to come on to. I'll quickly have a look at the chat. Kobe's joined us tonight. He's an Aldershot fan. 30 goals, no pens. Macaulay Langstaff, the goal scoring machine. Matthew, who's a Wrexham supporter. I think it's Racecourse Ramble, if I do believe. If you are a Wrexham fan and you haven't seen their podcast, I would suggest going and watching that. He's got a Twitter there too. Ian Birchnell says, correct, Maka doesn't take penalties, and that's just something just to add. To say he doesn't even take penalties, and he's almost on 30 goals. Voice of Reason, nice name that. Southend players not off the pitch in the reverse fixture, one of the dodgiest referees I've ever seen in my life. Liam, and this is back to that Southend game now. Liam said 2-1 Southend. Big one to call. We've also had Marcus who said, relying on penalties, you shouldn't show some respect to Paul Mullin. Joshua has come in and said 2-1 to Notts. Chris Gosling's come in and said 3 Notts 3, Southend 1. Jack Bridge scoring 2 on his debut. We've also had Chris who has said Southend 2, Notts 1. Dale's come in and said 3-0 Notts. The well-allied machine will keep marching on. Bernardo, I won't pronounce that last name because I don't want to offend you. Come on, Southend. So you must be a Southend supporter. It might be Wrexham actually at the moment. There seems to be this weird thing going on at the moment between the two clubs. Dorking are massive everywhere we go. I'll agree with you on that. Keza has said, obviously I don't hope Southend go bust, but if they were to, how would that affect the league? I less relegation spots. Yeah, Paul, would you have like any scenario? Well, would you know any information on that if they were to go bust? Would it basically mean less relegation spots? Would it be about? Would everyone who's played Southend this season get 6 points off them, or would just literally no one get any points? I don't know, and I don't want to talk like this because it's not happened yet, and I honestly feel Southend, they'll pull through in the end, and I don't want to jinx it there. But if the worst was to come to the worst, and I know we have a few Southend fans who are watching, so I do apologise. How would it work, the format?
Do you know what? It's a good point. Yeah. Firstly, I echo what you're saying. I don't think anyone wants to see any club go to the wall, especially in the manner that it appears to be happening with Southend, and the potential for them to be so much bigger than they are with their future ground, stadium plans and property development. Spots. When we lost Macclesfield a couple of years ago, and it was only 3, not 4, which what was that last season before? Who knows? I mean, like you, 1st of March, the HMRC need their payments. Is Ron Martin going to pay it? If he does pay it, how long are they going to last anyway? You'd like to think they'd at least try and get through to the end of the season and see where the land lies in terms of where they are. If they're in the playoffs, still in the National League, are they going to be in the Football League if they win it? Because they've got the potential to. So it's a real messy situation, both for the National League, for Southend, and their fan base. And it's a shame that there's too many clubs that are in this position, owned by people or groups who probably don't have an interest in the football team, or they take on too much, and they bite off more they can chew, and it just becomes too much of a thing for them. So fingers crossed, March the 1st comes, they're going to be continuing play until the end of the season. if they're not able to, I genuinely have no idea. I can see him expunging results and adjusting relegation places potentially. But that's just my view.
We don't want to talk about. I don't really want to go into, because I know a few people may ask us to say who would you expect to get relegated if that did happen. I don't really want. I want to talk about it as if Southend are going to survive at the end of the season. Anyway, back to the predictions. We've had Ryan who's come in and said 4-0 to Bournemouth. Oh, come on, Ryan. You have to be a bit more positive than that being a York City supporter. Jack's come in and said, come on, Dorking, Mark White, red and white army. Luke, say Dorking are massive. Dorking are massive. There you go. I don't mind Dorking, so I'll say that. But he's put, we've talked about that. I think we are. Yeah, we've had just one more. Get owned working by Wrexham in the playoffs. Who's I can't read that actually. Tyler, I'll say it is. Do apologise if I got that wrong. I hope Southend can get everything worked out. Yeah, I think we all do, pal. And yeah, let's go on to our next game then. Where would you like to go next?
Oh, Maidstone Eastleigh, as we've sort of touched on Maidstone.
Yeah, that's a good one to talk about at the moment. It does. There we go. Found it. So just put this into context for those who have missed the start. We've talked a bit about Maidstone. Maidstone, bottom of the pile of the National League at the moment. Slight gap there between them and 23rd. They are 8 points adrift of safety, which at the moment is quite a big gap considering they've played the most games in the Division 2. Eastleigh, though, at home, this is something just to add to this, if I can get it up here. I think Eastleigh don't have the best away record in the division, so it could be an opportunity for Maidstone to gain some points. I think, is it Eastleigh who have the 16th worst away record in the division, which I think improved actually recently. Yeah, 17th, in fact. In the division. Bloody hell, they're worse than Halifax. That has to say something on away form at the moment. But yeah, that's quite an interesting topic because I know a lot of the time when I predict Maidstone versus East, I predict Maidstone results, and something that I do sympathise and have a bit of empathy for with the Maidstone fan that often joins us. I often predict Maidstone to lose matches, not for saying 1 minute they're not going to lose this match. But I think there's a chance and there's a possibility that Maidstone can pick some points up in this game.
I think they've got to really hold on to that very slim chance of getting some out because of Eastleigh's away records. I know when we played them, Wealdstone played Eastleigh down at the Vale, not so many weeks ago. Eastleigh had won, I think, once up until that point, and they were truly dreadful away from home. We played them and beat them quite easily, and you just to think that are they in a playoff place or very close to being in a playoff place
at the moment?
If they can just improve that away form, and tomorrow night I think is one where I think they're going to get points. They're going to win all 3 points and be too strong for Maidstone. But can you imagine where they might have been if their away form had been that decent? Because their home form is frightening. So they've certainly, as I say, they've certainly improved after that sort of 1 win in 13 games to a point now where they're showing a bit more consistency. I think tomorrow night they'll continue doing it. I can see him winning 3-0. Lee Bradbury's really got a well-oiled machine down there. Got the lad in on loan from QPR who look.
Are we back?
Yeah, there, Luke.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, it did cut out just then, so I wasn't sure if you finished or not. But
Eastleigh 3, Maidstone 0.
Eastleigh 3, Maidstone 0. Yeah, the favourites are Eastleigh slightly in this game. I think is it probably a draw? I think is what's predicted by the odds. I think I'll be backing Eastleigh in this game. I think the away forms improved recently. They went to Dagenham, got all 3 points there. I think Eastleigh's a side. They've got some quality players all around the field. Carter seems to be chipping in with a few goals recently too. You've also got the forward lines of Whitehall. You've also got Alfie Lloyd, another youngster that's scoring for fun at the moment too. Lee Bradbury, a manager that I highly rate at the moment. And with the pressure being on them to break into the playoffs for the first time in quite a long period of time. I think it was early on in the season when they were last in the playoffs. I think I can't see Eastleigh not dropping points in this game. I just think it's too big of a game for them to drop points. And I think with the quality that they've got compared to Maidstone, I think they're going to get all 3 points. That said, Maidstone must be looking into this game. If we've got any hope of survival, we need to be going into this game guns blazing and hopefully getting all 3 points. But yeah, hopefully it can improve at Maidstone in the long term. Another side that I don't want to actually see go down. I don't want to see any sides go down. But obviously they're a side that especially I want a big club in the non-league, former football league side too. I don't really want to see them going down to the National League South, especially with it being their first season back in the National League. Next game then that we'll have a look at. I think we've got 3 games remaining. I think let's have a look at Gateshead versus Oldham. This is a slight, probably not as significant as the Dorking versus Torquay game. Yet again, Gateshead must be going into this game needing the 3 points to get out of the relegation places. They'll be hoping, I think, in that result, if they can get all 3 points, they'll be hoping for a draw between the two sides in Dorking and Torquay. Oldham seem to be climbing up the table now, getting away from them relegation places at the moment. How do you see this game going?
I've gone with a 2-2 draw. Oldham ain't going to fancy going to Gateshead on a Tuesday night. You know, no disrespect to Gateshead. That's not a ground that you want to be visiting on a Tuesday night in February, no matter whether you're full time or not. And Gateshead have found some form, haven't they? You know, they've got the sort of, they play some of the best football in the league.
Yeah, something I'll agree with.
But a little bit like most of these teams we talk about who are in and around the bottom, is finding that crucial end product. And having lost both Langstaff and Scott last year to Notts County, that is a huge blow for any football club, especially someone like our Gateshead, a little bit like Torquay. How easy is it to recruit that far northeast? You got to sort of start looking in a more specific area for players. Down here in London, if you think about someone like Wealdstone or Barnet, you can attract. You got more clubs around you. You can attract the loan market and the free agency market. But Gateshead, a really good football team, old traditional non-league team. They do things the right way. Oldham, on the other hand, obviously we know much about their history and where they've been and where they've fallen to. And David Unsworth hasn't sort of set the world alight. He's got tons of players. Does he know his best 11? I don't know. I think they're both capable of scoring goals. They're both capable of letting goals in. So I've gone for a 2-2 draw.
I just want to add this just to the screen as well. And I'm going to back Oldham in this game quite convincingly too. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Oldham win. And of course, Gateshead managed to travel to Oldham and gain a vital point there, being obviously 2-0 down as well to come back. But I'm backing Oldham in this game just purely basically on this. It's quite surprising. Gateshead's home form is really poor. 2 wins all season at home, 6 draws. Of course, you look at Oldham's away record isn't the best either. But honestly, I'd be backing Oldham in this game. Seem to be a totally different side now. 8 goals in the last 3 games. They're looking really good. Since 2023 kicked off, despite that Halifax result, they actually look a really good side. And they're improving, and that's something that's vital. There's still questions about David Unsworth. On a personal note, I honestly feel that he's probably not the right manager for the job at the moment to take Oldham forward. Then again, he would do a better job towards the end of the season now. I think it's getting to the end of the season for them, safe and sound, which in my opinion, they will do. You look at them at the moment, down in 16th, climbing away from the relegation zone, games in hand on teams above them. They could go above Aldershot if they do win the games in hand. I think Oldham, this game away from home at Gateshead, I'll be backing them. Gateshead not good at home. And like I've mentioned, Gateshead obviously losing to Southend away from home on Saturday. And I believe, who was it Oldham were playing on Saturday? It's gone out of my head now. Do you know who Oldham were playing on Saturday? It's gone right out of my head now. Oh no, Maidstone. That was it. Maidstone at home. They defeated Maidstone at home on Saturday, and I'd expecting them to back this up with a good away win at Gateshead, in my opinion. But yeah, I know Mr. Luke won't be happy. He was probably in the chat somewhere. I think he did give his prediction earlier. He did say, I'm saying 3-1 to Gateshead. Wishful thinking, but yeah, I'm sure as a Gateshead fan, you'll be hoping you can get all 3 points. Kedger's coming, can't see our players turning up tomorrow. Being battered twice now, we have played them, passed around as if we weren't even there. Plus small away following, so players may be even less up for it. Yeah, a different perspective there from an Oldham fan. Quite down considering that have improved recently, but a 2-0 win against Maidstone on Saturday. Next game then. Have a look
should we have a look at Maidenhead Yeovil? Because I'm not sure there's much to talk about that one. No disrespect to those two teams, but
nothing. It's just one of those, isn't it, where there's just it's nothing really to play for. I mean,
Yeovil could go down. I think they've got enough.
Yeah.
Mark Cooper's done a fantastic job. 2 losses in 12. They just can't score goals. You know, he stopped them letting goals in. I went there a couple of Tuesday nights ago. It was 0-0. You know, I think they're probably going to go into the Maidenhead game with a bit of confidence. A moral victory for them against Notts County on Saturday. Probably should have won. Notts County just proved they're better in both boxes. I just can't. Maidenhead, a very well-established mid-table National League team. Alan Devonshire does a brilliant job on a very, very limited budget. Has that hybrid model of some train full-time, some don't. They crash the ball forwards. They don't play a lot of football. Yeovil won't play a lot of football because they haven't got anything up top. I've gone for a 0-0.
Oh, we've agreed on that one. I think that's the first one we've agreed on tonight. But yeah, Maidenhead 1 win in 5. Maidenhead picked up 19 points at home in 14 games this season. Yeovil have the most draws in the league. Maidenhead have very average home form recently. A lot of draws within there too. A lot of those draws, those 6 draws that they've got all season, a lot of those have come very, very recently. Yeah, I'd be going for a 0-0 draw. Both sides aren't particularly too prolific this season. So yeah, I'd be going for a 0-0 draw in my opinion. Neither side have too much on the forward front, but I honestly feel both sides will be fine. Yeovil seem to scrap out results when it's needed, and that's something that you need in this division. So yeah, I'll be backing Yeovil to survive this season. That does come on to that question that I do want to ask. I don't want to avoid it because I know a few people asking on Twitter for me to do this one, and just for anyone that is watching that's new or hasn't thought to get your opinions in it on Twitter when I do announce the podcast, please leave any topics that you'd like us to talk about in greater depth below. Any questions that you have, any comments even, just leave them below. But out of I'd probably say up to Halifax, anyone could probably go down from there. Yet again, I think Oldham probably will be fine. Halifax will probably be fine. Who would your bottom 4 be?
Maidstone, Dorking, Gateshead, and then one from possibly sort of Torquay, Oldham. Scunthorpe look like they're dead and buried, right? But I think with their recent investment, their new manager, their upturning fortunes, and sort of just the feel around the place, I think, you know, Dorking and Gateshead will probably go down, and then the 4th one's a bit more difficult to call. Scunthorpe possibly, if they don't start picking up results quickly. Torquay, if they don't continue their upward trajectory. So maybe one of those 2 as well.
Yeah. There's one side that's dead and buried, in my opinion, like you've said, and I think anyone else could survive from that list. Dorking not looking good at the moment. They seem to be found out, in my opinion, but I'd like to hope that they can turn a corner, but it's not looking good, especially with Gateshead, Torquay and Scunthorpe all improving too. York, the way they're playing at the moment, they could fall into that bottom 4. But final game then that we'll look at, and on the topic, no, we've got 2 games, haven't we? We've got Barnet and Altrincham. 3 games, in fact. Thanks for reminding me. Barnet versus Altrincham. This was one of the toughest games to call, and there aren't many easy games to call in the National League. Barnet, probably a few weeks ago, I'll be back in Barnet to comfortably win this game, but Barnet, of course, lost to Torquay, who, of course, are struggling themselves. Torquay, but have improved recently away from home. And Altrincham pulled off an astonishing result against Woking at Altrincham at the J. Davidson Stadium 2. How do you see this game going then?
It was a real difficult one to call. Being a Wealdstone fan and Barnet not being our favoured team, there's got to be an argument for Barnet to be the most improved side in the National League season on season, without a shadow of a doubt. What Dean Brennan's done. He seems to have got a squad together that want to play for that football club. There's a bit of stability in the management. Tony Kleanthos has backed them and gone and got some quite impressive signings, either loans or permanent deals. I think I've just gone with Barnet losing. I know they're at home, but just that dip in a little bit of form, and Alty are going to come in with a little bit of exuberance after that really good win against Woking. They're going to feel like they're going to get something out of Barnet if they can out of Woking. I certainly, a real difficult one to call. I've gone with Altrincham to win 2-1, but it could go the other way. But Altrincham 2-1.
I've gone the other way, and I've gone for a Barnet 2-1 win. Long way to go for Barnet, for Altrincham, I should say, on a Tuesday night, being at home. They're still a really good side. Losing to Torquay, Torquay fighting for their lives. You're going to have these games. It's just about bouncing back. I think that Notts County game, you can't read too much into that. A lot of players going forward for Barnet. I think being at home, they haven't been at the high for a long time now. I think it'll do them some good being back at home with that crowd, which I'm sure it'll be a good atmosphere with how Barnet are playing at the moment. Getting behind them, an opportunity for a big crowd for them. I'll be back in Barnet in this game. I think it's a long way, like I mentioned, for Altrincham on a Tuesday night. So yeah, I'll be going for a 2-1 Altrincham win. But it's another question about Altrincham is, are they still in that playoff chase? Because I said they'd be dead and buried from that after that result against prior to the Woking game. Me and Tom were reacting to our initial predictions, and I think Tom put Altrincham 9th. It was looking likely until recently, and he was saying there's no chance now that Altrincham will finish 9th. Yet again, this go and pull off a result against one of the strongest sides in the division in Woking. So could be a question for Altrincham that they could climb up that table. Where would you see them finish come end of the season?
I don't think they've got quite enough. They haven't shown the level of consistency up until now to challenge in there. Bad start, much better, improved sort of in the second quarter of that season. They've not done brilliantly in sort of since Christmas, aside from a couple of results. It's difficult, right? Because although they've gone full time, they're still one of the smaller teams in the division, and they're going to lose players to higher divisions, higher teams within the National League. Loan players are going to go to other EFL clubs. So I think they're doing tremendously well, and they're a really good model both on and off the pitch for what a National League team should be, a traditional National League team should be. And they're slowly making steps to become a more established National League team into the playoffs, then maybe get promoted in a few years' time. So they're really going in the right direction. I think this season, their first season as a full-time status, they lost a lot of players. You've got to remember that at the beginning of the season because of that changeover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have long-term ambitions, in my opinion, Altrincham, to break into the playoffs and get promoted. But like you've mentioned, I don't think this season they purely have the quality to get promoted in the National League. I look at the players that they've lost. They've lost that spine of a team that they had, and the replacements I don't think have been to the standard. But you're never going to find that. We saw that with Halifax at the start of the season. The replacements weren't as good as this team we had last season. It's virtually impossible to bring in better players, especially during mid-season too. But unfortunately, I think from Altrincham's perspective, it's going to be a mid-table finish, which I don't think would be a bad finish at the start of the season. I think they'd take that. But obviously, how they were going in the league, they want to run like Barnet that Barnet was on. They would, of course, been wanting to have further ambitions. But unfortunately, I don't think they've got quite enough, like you've mentioned. But yeah, I've gone for a 2-1 Barnet win. Next game that we will have a look at, we've got Wrexham Scunthorpe, and we've also got
Woking Bromley.
Well, we ain't looked at that game. Woking versus Bromley. This was another one that was hard to call, especially with Woking dropping points on Saturday against Altrincham. Bromley on a really good run at the moment. They seem to be going under the radar in 7th place at the moment. They're starting a nice run within there. How do you see this game for affair?
I've gone with a 2-2 draw. Both very capable of scoring goals. Both seem to be very resilient, determined almost not to lose when you look at their results. As you say, Bromley are really flying under that radar. You look at Woking, who have made people sit up and notice, bloody hell, they're doing superbly well. Again, another team that have gone into full-time status this season, adapted to it a little bit better than Altrincham, managed to keep a lot of their players and add to it. I think they've got a very, very good manager in Darryl Sahl. And keeping him was definitely a benefit. But Bromley are the same, having top 10 finishes, or being in the top 10 and 2 top 10 finishes, winning the FA Trophy. A real tough, both really tough teams to beat. And I went to Bromley early in the season, and Wealdstone were winning 3 times, and it ended up being 3-3. They just didn't give up. And I could see that kind of happening again. Woking probably being the better footballing side, especially that someone like Reece Brown up top, Padre Amons as well. They've got real good firepower, but I think Bromley will peg them back, and it will be a 2-2 draw.
I'm going to agree with you on that once again. 2-2 draw. And Woking being at home a couple of weeks, got to be backing them. But Bromley have lost 1 game in 2023. They're on a really good run at the moment. A lot of draws within there too. I think only Bournemouth and Yeovil have more draws than them this season. And I think going away to Woking, it won't be the prettiest game in my opinion, although 2 sides are in strong positions at the moment. But I think Bromley, they'll go there with maybe not the intention to win the game, but to sit back. And I think it'll be a case of Woking trying to break them down, which will make the game open. And I think, it'll be a 2-2 draw, in my opinion. Andy Woodman, I know he's quite a lot of people have a dislike for him in the National League, and probably a lot of people watching this stream, but you have to give him credit for the job that he's doing at Bromley at the moment and what he has been doing for a number of seasons now. But yeah, both sides have a lot of power on that forward front. Bromley, Cheek, Marriott, Woking have, of course, Reece Brown, a really good player. Gregor Cox as well, another player too. Padraig Omans chipping in with the goal recently too. So yeah, I think it'll be a high-scoring game in my opinion. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. And then we've got the final game, I believe, which is Wrexham versus Scunthorpe United. And Scunthorpe are making it a pain for, I think, us both to predict this game. And Wrexham are as well, with them dropping points to Woking. I'm going to back them. I'm going to back Wrexham still at home. I think most people probably still will. I won't give me a prediction yet, but let me just ask your opinion. Let's first have a look at Scunthorpe and their recent form. What do you think of Scunthorpe at the moment?
I think they're a bit of an unknown quantity, aren't they? New owner, new manager, new 11, starting 11. This could be I think I'm a bit like you. I've gone with Wrexham. Ultimately, I think Wrexham will win. Because they find a way of winning. They're not the prettiest team in the league, but they find a way of winning. They proved that on Saturday. They prove it an awful lot, even against the teams like Sheffield United. That they're going to be wiped to the floor with. The one thing with Scunthorpe, you look at their recent recruitment from a whole set of divisions. They've gone from where the managers come from, Peterborough Sports, right the way through to sort of Football League team, League One, League Two teams. They've bought a lot of presence and a lot of height and a lot of physicality. One thing that Wrexham play on as well. So you'd like to think maybe Scunthorpe, if anyone, can match up with that. And go back to the basics, a bit like Yeovil did against Notts County a few weeks ago. Almost park that bus, make it difficult to beat. If we don't let a goal in, we might nick one at the other end. I have gone with Wrexham to win 2-1. It could easily
third game.
it could easily be that coupon buster, that one that, you know, when you're doing your accumulators on your betting slip is, Wrexham top of the league, Scunthorpe bottom, it's odds on Wrexham. That could be the coupon buster, but I can't see it, but it could be.
You know what? I've gone for 2-1 to Wrexham, and like you've mentioned, that's something I do want to talk a little bit about. Is that physical attributes that Scunthorpe have brought into the squad? Joe McDonough up top. I remember him at Halifax. Wasn't your typical footballing type of player that's, you know, going to take on 3 players and score a wonder goal. He's not particularly prolific himself, although he has, I think, scored recently as well. He might have scored on Saturday. But what he does do well is he holds the ball up well and he bullies defences. That traditional no-nonsense target man, which he is. And then other players such as Sean Shields, who they've brought in too. Danny Elliott was on a good form at Gateshead. He was doing well there. He's obviously gone to Scunthorpe now and he's chipping in with a few more goals too. So they're good going forward and they've improved defensively too. Jacob Butterfield seems to be coming out of his shell now and looking like the player that we expected at the start of the season with his high calibre football league experience that he has. And I don't see this being an easy game. I see it as a massive banana skin for Wrexham. You know, their home record status is under a lot of threat at the moment. You know, you look at dropping points to Woking, sends a message to the majority of the league is if Woking can do it, then we're going to give it a good go too. Because you look at that Woking game, you look at where Woking exploited Wrexham, where Wrexham are slightly vulnerable, and where you can stop their good attributes like Woking did. And that's what a side like Scunthorpe will be doing, who are on form at the moment. Their fans will go there not expecting anything, and that might be a good thing too, because you're going into the game with a lack of pressure, going to Wrexham. They've got nothing to lose. It'd be like a party atmosphere in that way end for Scunthorpe. The fact that they've got their club back, they're playing nicer football at the moment, and you just look at this game not expecting too much. So yeah, I'd still be expecting Wrexham to pull through, but I wouldn't be surprised if Scunthorpe took the lead early on and gave Wrexham an early scare, and Wrexham come back to win 2-1. Have you got anything else finally to say on this game?
No. It's as I say, a possible coupon buster, but I can see Wrexham winning.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that once again. To quickly have a look at the chat because we're about to wrap things up. Almost 60 people are in the stream at the moment, so really good to see high numbers tonight. Dave, Mr. Luke said he's predicting Gateshead to win. Who was it now? Kez, we play extremely well, and Dean seems tactically great, but we could most definitely get battered. Phil's come in. Sounds nuts, but I hope they put either Mulls or Palmer on the bench for the rest of the game. Give Dolby a full run out. I think he's an awesome player. That's something that I did see as well online. There were talk about, of course, dropping Palmer and putting Dolby into the team, and I was a bit like, hey, you look at Palmer's goal scoring record compared to Dolby. Of course, I don't watch Wrexham every single game, so I don't know, but he seems to be doing really well at the moment and holding the ball up well. Did very well, of course, in the FA Cup too. Dylan said Wrexham haven't lost the home game all season, only dropped 2 points at home. Yeah, but that was, of course, against Woking. Mr. Luke came in and said, plenty of games to go for us, lots of twists and turns, still fighting to prove them wrong. Yeah, hopefully you can prove me wrong come end of the season. Chris said Wrexham won, Scunthorpe 3. Geez, that's a prediction for you right there. And then Coco Riley said not to take away from them, but don't you think that they have been very lucky this season compared to Notts with things such as late winners and having refs on their side? In my opinion, and I'm not trying to be in favour for Wrexham here, but I just see it as resilience. I don't see it as Wrexham being fortunate in that games. I think for them to keep going until the final whistle says a lot about a side, and the way they play, although they get an awful lot of penalties, it's all also down to the way they play, how they get in the box, they get in your face and cause defenders to get frustrated, which means they do concede a lot of penalties. That's something I will ask you, Paul, before we do wrap things up. What's your thoughts on Wrexham? Because you often seen a lot of criticism, and even me to a certain extent, I've said, "Oh, come on, this must be fixed." The amount of times you see late goals for Wrexham, even that Aldershot game too, and the amount of penalties that they do get too.
We can be very cynical and sort of suggest that, going to the race course, 10,000 people there, the ref get influenced by it. I know Wealdstone, personally, I wasn't at the game, but the referees weren't particularly good, and there was a feeling that they were a bit of a homer ref. I think you're right. I think there's more to the fact that teams that win penalties get the ball in the box of the opposition more than most, right? And because they've got the likes of Mullin and Palmer up top, who are very good at this level, without a shadow of a doubt, they're very good at this level. There's a reason why Wrexham are probably paying the money to be at this level, right? So they're likely to draw penalties. Whether they should be or not, that's another debate with officiating in the National League and all the leagues in England. We could probably spend an hour on officials alone. I think you're right as well. That resilience, that never say die attitude, they will just play till they can win or get a result. They don't play the prettiest football in the league. They rely on restarts, set plays, long throws. But they've got height, presence, experience throughout the spine of their team, who've played at higher levels or at this level for a long time. It's inevitable that they're going to, win games or draw games at the end. They've got a massive squad. They're full time. They've got a huge amount of resource. It's a bit like United when they had Fergie. Everyone talks about Fergie time. It feels like that, right? But it's hugely frustrating for us, and because of their ownership and everything else that goes with that, we can be bitter about it. But you just got to take your hat of the team that you support off and go, look, they're just a very good team at what they do. They're not the prettiest team in the world. They're just very good at what they do.
No.
And that's the reason why they're top of the league. I think most will probably want Notts to win because of the way they play and the fact they don't get many penalties and all this sort of thing. Because I think they are the better footballing team, the better team in the league, and probably the best team in the league. But Wrexham are going to go all the way. I mean, they could both hit 100 points and one of them not get promoted. That is ridiculous.
110 they're both on for at the moment.
110. It's ridiculous.
More than any side's ever got in this National League. So.
It shows the quality of the National League. Be it part-time or full-time. The quality in this league is probably better than the EFL2 and some EFL1 teams. We're very lucky to be at, watching it at this period of it in its existence, right? Because I think we've got very, very good teams, very good games week in, week out. And Wrexham have added to that with their ownership, whether people like it or not. Fair play to them. I think we would all like that sort of input.
I just love the fact that I come on, I do a live stream like this, and you've got, Canadians, Americans that are tuning in too, and I have to say that I've got no issues with it at all. I think there's more to talk about on podcasts like this with the title race that we've got. This is probably the most entertaining league in the National League. Every single club in the National League, there's something going on at the moment. They've got something to play for. Even your Yeovils, like your Maidenhead, we've talked a little bit about tonight. But even those could fall into that relegation scrap come the end of the season. It's so open, this league, and the title race just adds to it. And the amount of big clubs in this division is just another factor too. And you think of sides like Wealdstone, who are a surprise package, Barnet, and they're up there too with the potential to break into the playoffs this season. Some are saying Aldershots and your Halifaxes can still break into the playoffs, but some say they could still obviously get. Still go down too, and that just tells you everything about this league this season. And it's been a pleasure to do a podcast like this once again and talk about the National League. I know someone came in with the standard of officiating. That is something that needs to change. We could do a full podcast on officiating, but working another side I ain't talked about. But Paul, once again, I know it's been quite a long podcast tonight, but I do really appreciate you coming on.
No problem.
And giving us a great insight into the National League. I know we've had a lot of people that have come on recently and they've said some great things in the comment section below about having you on as a co-host.
No, I appreciate it. I enjoyed doing it. It makes me watch these teams more and how they're doing. And I get to a lot of the home and away games for Wealdstone, so I do get to see them firsthand, even if it's just that once or twice a season. So, no, listen, appreciate the comments. It's great to have 60 plus people in. sort of engaging and talking and having a passion about the National League like myself and you do, Luke. So no, I'm grateful to be on and happy to help whenever.
Hopefully you can beat me and Trevor in the predictions, or at least me this week. These were last week's predictions too. For those that are still with us tonight, please remember to like and subscribe too. It really does go a long way. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the season. Come on, help me get over the line. There must be a few people in this stream that haven't subscribed yet. And once again, thank you to everyone that's tuned in. Paul, once again, thanks for joining me. And I will see you on Thursday evening. Bye.